Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. This is a closed beta replay sent in by Cook111, and he is driving the mighty Tier 10 Japanese cruiser, the Zhao. I've never played this thing, and this is the only time I've ever seen a replay of this ship. And, well, there were a couple of surprises in store for me, not least because of the way that Cook plays this thing, which is absolutely hilarious. And, well, I don't want to... No spoilers. You'll know the part I'm talking about when you see it happen. But also, this is a cruiser that gets the Battleship Repairability. So you take damage in this ship, and you can repair the health bar. Wow. I only got as far as Tier 8 in the closed beta test, so I managed to get as far as the Mogami. And in the US Navy cruiser line, I got as far as the New Orleans, and I thought they were both fantastic ships, but you definitely didn't get any repair consumable on those ships, so a high-tier cruiser thing. Initial impressions, it's a beautiful ship. It just looks powerful and menacing. Lots and lots and lots of 203mm guns. But, well, the Des Moines, the American Tier 10, its guns are autoloaders. That thing fires 90 shots a minute. So what does the Zhao have to make it competitive against ships like the Des Moines? Well, the Des Moines don't get no torpedo launchers, and this thing does, and it gets a lot of them. Obviously, Japanese cruisers from Tier 3 up come bristling with torpedo tubes, and that is definitely the case on this thing. And the guns aren't bad either. It doesn't have the same gun firepower as the Des Moines, not with its 203mm autoloaders, but the guns on this thing are alright, based on what I've seen in this replay anyway. So what's going on here? Obviously it's a Tier 10 game. Enemy team have got two Tier 10 battleships, a Yamato and a Montana, and one Tier 10 cruiser, the Des Moines. Cook's team have got two Tier 10 cruisers, himself and a Des Moines, and one Tier 10 battleship. Here come the enemy aircraft, and they're pretty much all going for Cook. So, he's triggered his defensive fire cooldown, and that is going to save his ass here. It doesn't just multiply the firepower of your anti-aircraft batteries, and the Zhao does have a very respectable anti-aircraft battery, but it also rattles the pilots and forces them to drop their weapons with a much, much wider spread, and that's what's going to save his arse here, because those torpedoes, smart move from the enemy carrier captain, he saw him manoeuvring, and he delayed the torpedo launch to come in from the other side to maximise his chance of getting a broadside strike into this Tier 10 cruiser. Luckily, because Zhao had used that defensive fire cooldown, the spread of the torpedoes was very, very wide, so he only actually took 2 torpedo hits. If not for that defensive fire cooldown, he would have probably died right here. He holds off on using his damage control ability until the dive bombers have hit, and uses it to not only stop the flooding from the torpedoes, but to put out the fires caused by the dive bomber strikes. But look at how many aircraft he shot down. He completely wiped out one torpedo bomber squadron before it even dropped its torpedoes into the water. Now, of course, he's also using that damage repairability, trying to recover some of the health that he lost during that initial attack. Cook is about to launch his torpedoes down the throat of the narrows there between the two islands, just to do a bit of area denial work. And while he's launching his torpedoes, it's worth pointing out that there's a bit of a failed platoon on Cook's team, although obviously it's a failed division because it's World of Warships, not World of Tanks. There's a Tier 8 battleship on his team, who is in a division with a Tier 5 carrier, the Zuho. In fact, it's the only carrier on their team. Now, in a kind of game like this, where you've got Tier 10 and 9 cruisers and battleships with the kind of concentrated anti-aircraft firepower that those ships have, you would think that a Tier 5 carrier, with the pitiful amount of hit points that its aircraft have, would just not be able to contribute at all. Would just be a burden to his team. In fact, a Tier 5 destroyer would probably be of more benefit to the team than a Tier 5 carrier. And yet, that guy up there at the top of the team list manages to finish this game with over 1,000 base experience in a Tier 5 carrier in a Tier 10 battle. Does substantially better than most of the Tier 7 cruisers in this match. Up ahead there, you can see one of the Tier 10 battleships, as well as a Baltimore-class cruiser, and a pair of Colorado-class battleships. Cook starts opening up with his 203mm gun batteries, and check this out. that Colorado there is going to get this Baltimore killed. He drives into him, dies, and now they just can't miss the Baltimore. I would love to see team chat. He is going to be cursing that Colorado. More enemy aircraft on the way, however. Can Cook get the killing shot? Fires over the island. Shots go in. It looks reasonably good. Yep, he's got him. Now, Cook's defensive fire cooldown has just come off cooldown, and just in time, because here come more waves of torpedo bombers and dive bombers. He starts manoeuvring, and again, the enemy carrier captain was pretty good. Watch this. One torpedo spread comes in from directly ahead. He obviously turns into those, narrowly avoids hitting one of the torpedoes. The second comes in from a perpendicular angle. Classic carrier torpedo drop tactics, very well executed by the enemy carrier pilot. But thanks to the defensive fire cooldown, rattling the pilots and forcing them to drop with a much wider spread, Cook gets away with it once more. So he's safe from enemy fire for the moment. His damage repairability is going to come off cooldown very soon. He's going to be able to use it to recover some of that health. But he has taken a lot of damage, and he hasn't done an awful lot other than shoot down a bunch of aircraft. And he's a tier 10 Japanese cruiser. He needs to start putting these guns and torpedoes to work. Up ahead, we've got the American tier 10 battleship, the Montana. I think that's a Mogami with him. And potentially, I believe there's also a Colorado up there. The American tier 8 battleship. We haven't seen the Mogami yet, but he is up there. Now, these guys are taking a lot of fire from other ships on Cook's team. And rather than steam around the corner into the direction where these guys' guns are pointing, he instead does something interesting. He slows down and he starts turning. And what I believe he's attempting to do here is, well, you can see that's the majority of his team, all engaging fire with those two battleships and the one cruiser that's over there. So that's obviously where all of their guns are going to be pointed. And there you can see the Mogami's just popped up on the map as well. So rather than sail directly into where all of these enemy ships are pointing their guns, because he would become the priority target, he's a tier 10 cruiser and he's low on health. So instead of doing that, he's threading the gap between the narrows here, so he can bring his broadside, once he gets his turrets turned around, and shoot at these guys while their guns are pointing in the other direction. Interesting plan. How well would it have worked? Well, we're never going to find out, because as he's doing that, trouble suddenly appears directly ahead. That's the Yamato, the tier 10 battleship, and the New Orleans, the tier 8 cruiser. And that's not all, those are just the ones that have been spotted. Defending the cap, one lone battleship, and he's taken the brunt of the firepower from all of these guys. Now, Zhao immediately changes course. And there it is up ahead, that's the Fletcher, the tier 9 American destroyer. Of course, his initial targets have now spotted him as he crosses the gap here, so that Colorado over on his starboard quarter has now lit him up. There are enemy aircraft incoming. He starts shooting at the New Orleans. Here comes the fire from the Colorado. Thankfully it all misses. A little bit of a replay bug here. The New Orleans kind of rubber banded a little there, but he did hit him. Scored a very good hit. Citadel penetration. His guns are ready to fire again. They're about to take that battleship out. And that is a Yamato over there, and he's almost on full health. He's going to have to deal with the New Orleans first, and he's on half health, and then he's going to have to go up against the tier 10 battleship. But he's putting some good shots into this New Orleans. There's another Citadel penetration. He's doing a lot of damage to this guy. Finish this guy off. Then he can deal with the Yamato. New Orleans, concentrating his fire on the battleship. Another Citadel penetration. 2 Citadel penetrations, and he's knocked out some of his guns. Final salvo should put this guy out. And he's got him. That's the good news. He's killed the New Orleans. The bad news is that he's now taking fire from the Yamato's secondary gun batteries at a range of 7 kilometers. That's how far those things fire, and it has a lot of them. The further bad news is that the Yamato in the New Orleans just killed the battleship who was defending the cap, so he is now it. He's also taking fire from, I think it's a Pensacola class cruiser, over on his starboard beam, and there's enemy aircraft going for him. And any second now, that Yamato is going to have its guns reloaded. It's 18.2-inch guns, possibly 18.1. Anyway, really big guns reloaded, and is going to start pummeling him. What would you do in this situation? It's full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes, and ramming speed, isn't it? I mean, he's on less than half health. The Yamato is almost on full health. He's got to ram him. Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But that's not his plan. The Yamato thinks that's his plan, and he's desperately trying to maximise the firepower he can put into him. But this is a tier 10 Japanese cruiser. And he has torpedoes. Lots of them. And at this range, he can't miss. Well, he's kind of screwed now, of course. That is a full health Pensacola class tier 7 cruiser, and he is armed with the same caliber 203mm guns that Cook has on his Zao. And it's not just the Pensacola shooting at him, there's battleships behind the Pensacola also shooting at him. Zao has less than 4,000 health, so he prepares to go down fighting and sell his life dearly. His first barrage hits the Pensacola, does a reasonable amount of damage, but nothing spectacular. He swings the ship around, gets the rear turrets pointing in his direction. Citadel penetration! Almost completely dodges the return barrage from the Pensacola. His secondaries start opening up. More shots come in from the Pensacola. This Pensacola has got to be thinking, how the hell did this happen? He nearly sank a full health Pensacola while being on less than 4,000 health in return, as well as finishing off a Baltimore class tier 9 cruiser and completely wrecking a Yamato tier 10 battleship. I think we can quite safely say that Cook 111 got his money's worth out of his tier 10 Zao class cruiser in this game. And when you have a look at the battle results screen with 330,000 credits received and 3,500 experience, I don't think Cook 111 has anything to really complain about in that one. Shot down 21 aircraft as well. I mean, he was the priority target for the enemy aircraft carrier, and you could tell by the way that that aircraft carrier was triggering his torpedo bomber attacks that he knew what he was doing. And in fact, it's no real surprise to see that he was the #1 experience earner on the enemy team. But what is surprising is to see how much experience the friendly aircraft carrier earned in that match. Over 1,000 base experience in a tier 5 carrier. Trigger happy there. Also, definitely one to watch out for when he's in command of an aircraft carrier. But top of the list, sinking 3 ships, shooting down 21 aircraft, and earning well over 2,000 base experience, Cook 111 in the Zao. How much damage did he do in that game? 56,000 points worth of armor-piercing shell damage, 25,000 points worth of high explosive shell damage. So he's not just one of those regular cruiser captains who does nothing but spam high explosive at everything. Almost 6,000 points worth of fire damage, and yeah, 70,000 points worth of torpedo damage, pretty much all of it against that Yamato. And his secondary batteries got in on the act as well, doing 627 damage as well. Not that it really matters. For a grand total of 158,603 points of damage in total. He's just showing off now, isn't he? Well, that's it for today, folks. I hope you had as much fun watching this replay as I did making the video. And thank you to Cook 111 for sending that game in during the closed beta test. I've been itching to put it up for a while. I was holding on to it so I could do my review of the Japanese tier 10 cruiser when I eventually unlocked it, but then the game went into open beta. They wiped everybody's progress, and it's going to be months before I get my hands on one of these things now. So now seemed like as good a time as any to share that game with you. I hope you enjoyed it, folks, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.